Where in the Constitution does it say that the Secretary of State can override the First Amendment protections of free speech? Is there a footnote that I missed somewhere?
There's no constitutional right to a student visa.
Do you think that the Immigration and Nationality Act trumps the Constitution of the United States, Mr. Secretary?
Well, Congress can always change the law if you want, but I'm telling you,
Mr.
in the
Secretary,
while I have the authority, I will
clear.
continue to revoke the visas of these people that come here to tear
you
this
said
country
that, Mr. Secretary.
apart
Let me
because
reclaim my
visas,
time because
Our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has really been a truth seeker and has really sided with the right side of history. In addition to being a Secretary of State, he is a very kind, brilliant, dedicated person to the United States of America. Let's watch as he is being attacked on his policies.
on March 21st, 2025, the State Department approved the revocation of a student visa for Romesa Oturk, a Turkish citizen who is a graduate student at Tufts University, apparently simply for writing an op-ed. According to an internal State Department memo, you took this action under your discretionary authority to revoke visas, and soon after you revoked her visa, armed and masked plainclothes officers snatched Ms. Oturk off the street and transported her to a prison in Louisiana. Mr. Secretary, do you really think that Ms. Oturk's op-ed results in a foreign policy consequence for the United States?
I believe that case involves someone whose visa we never would have granted had we known ahead of time.
I'm not asking you that question. I'm asking you if you think an op-ed, but that's exactly, in fact, what happened. The State Department wrote a memo concluding that you did not have sufficient grounds to revoke Ms. Oturk's visa. There was no evidence showing that she'd engaged in any activities or a threat to national security. And in fact, in May, a federal court ordered Ms. Oturk's release from detention, noting that the sole basis for the government's detention appeared to be the fact that she co-authored this opinion piece in the Tufts newspaper in March of 2024. Where in the Constitution does it say that the Secretary of State can override the First Amendment protections of free speech? Is there a footnote that I missed somewhere?
There's no constitutional right to a student visa.
But is there a constitutional right? Does it say somewhere that Marco Rubio gets to determine which speech is appropriate and revoke student visas based on what you think constitutes free speech?
There's a statute that says the Secretary of State gets to determine whether someone is a threat. We deny visas every day all over the world.
Do you think that the Immigration and Nationality Act trumps the Constitution of the United States, Mr. Secretary?
Well, Congress can always change the law if you want, but I'm telling you,
Mr.
while I have the authority, I will continue to revoke the visas of these people that come here to tear this country apart.
You said that, Mr. Secretary. Let me reclaim my time because you are talking about revoking student visas based on what somebody says, and that means that you are trumping the legal Supreme Court, the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution of the United States.
No one has a right to a student visa.
Mr. Rubio, why did the administration need to use masked, armed, unidentified agents to whisk somebody off the street and deny her counsel for almost 24 hours after her arrest?
Well, you'll have to ask the agencies that did that work. I'm not responsible for that. I'm responsible for revoking the visas of these people that come to tear this country
Rubio,
apart.
I'm talking about this particular case where you revoked the student visa of a Turkish citizen who was a graduate student who wrote an op-ed that you didn't like. And suddenly you allowed for masked men to whisk her off the street. And you have multiple jobs, apparently. You're the national security advisor as well. So don't tell me it's not your job. Who snatches her off the street?
We don't do the snatching, but I can tell you we do the visa revocations.
Let me ask you about the national security consequences of people, masked men on the streets, snatching people off the streets. If these are legitimate law enforcement agents carrying out proper arrests, why are they hiding their identities?
Because then radical crazies will try to hurt them.
So you think that U.S. agents who have almost always gone without face coverings, even when they're arresting some of the country's most dangerous criminals, suddenly have so much to fear from a graduate student who wrote an op-ed that they need to be masked? Is that
law
accurate?
student was a guest in the United States on a student visa. No one's entitled to a student visa.
So you revoked her student visa based on an op-ed which trumps the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution.
Someone's coming up here to stir up problems on our campus. We're going to revoke their visa.
She didn't do any of that. She wrote an op-ed.
Well,
she
that's
wrote
what
an
you
op-ed,
claim.
and I'm talking to you about her
That's her
particular
lawyer's
case.
claims and your
You
claims. Those are not the facts.
You reclaiming my time. You revoked her student visa
Yes,
because
proudly.
she wrote an op-ed.
And
Would
we'll
you
do more. We're
revoke?
gonna do more of
I
them.
have another question for you. Would you revoke the visa of someone in the United States who published claims that, quote, Jews are an untrustworthy and dangerous group? Yes or no?
We will revoke the visa of anyone who's in this country as a guest
Are
who's
you
here to stir up
going to
trouble.
revoke the visa of somebody who made
Send me
that?
the case, I'll look at it.
that
I'm looking
statement?
to get crazy people out of our
Actually, it's not
country.
just about revoking.
Forward
You
to
actually,
revoking the
Secretary
visas of any
Rubio,
lunatics you
excuse
can
me,
identify.
reclaiming my time. Can you explain to me why the Trump administration granted refugee status to Charles Kleinhaus, the white Afrikaner who tweeted that exact statement that I just said? There's the case.
That's not a visa.
You granted that person
That's
to
a
enter
totally
the United
different process.
States.
That's someone that applied here through a totally different process.
Secretary Rubio,
student visas are a privilege.
Secretary
we deny
Rubio,
them all the time,
you
and we'll revoke
revoked
them.
a visa based on an op-ed, and then you allowed for
Gentlelady's time
masked
has
men
expired.
to
That's your
snatch
claim. That's
somebody off
accurate. That's
the
your claim.
street.
Your time
That's your
has
claim.
expired.
That's your claim. That's not accurate.
Recognize Ranking Member Meeks for a closing statement.
Thank you, Marco Rubio. As always, you have responded so beautifully and spot on. May God bless you as a Secretary of State to continue on doing your job faithfully. It is no easy job, but I'll never forget your presentations defending Israel during the whole Gaza war. You are a true friend, and you have really shown us your soul, and we are grateful for that. But here again, when we deal with the right, the left, centrist, liberal, conservative, we cannot forget the fundamentals of what the United States of America is all about. We are rapidly approaching the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. So it truly gives us time to pause and go back to the basics and think about, why did God give us the gift of discovering the United States of America 250 years ago? Think about where the world was at 250 years ago. And realize and recognize that everything in life happens by design and purpose. King David in Psalm 37 writes, God decides man's footsteps geographically, which means wherever we go geographically, we go there by design. It's not by chance, not by accident, not by some fluke event that we end up where we end up. I look at my own personal life. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. In 1984, I got a calling. I was appointed by the Grand Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, to be his ambassador in northern San Diego, in a country suburb of San Diego, known Rancho Bernardo and now Poway. Geographically, I thought my life was going to be spent in Brooklyn, New York, but I was dispatched, and I've been there for 40 years now. Where we go geographically is by design. Globally, God was looking down from heaven and has witnessed the chaos the world has lived in and wanted to change the world order. And when Christopher Columbus set out on sail to discover the United States of America, here we are, 250 years later. It was by design. We are living in the most kindest government compared to anywhere else in the world. It's referred to by Rabbi Schneerson used to say, this is a kingdom of kindness. It's because the United States of America was founded by our forefathers that was based on the Bible, based on the Torah, based on the precepts that Moses taught us 3,337 years ago. And that's how we founded America. The Pilgrims, our trailblazers who fought the wars and created the United States of America that we have today. It was including God and religion into it. It was side by side. America wasn't founded on a godless country. It was founded on a country partnering with God. And the precepts that are taught in the Torah. The very first letter of the Ten Commandments is a letter that it's an acronym brought down in the books of mysticism, that my soul is written in the books of the Torah. So if you want to know God, study the Torah, study the Bible. That's how you get to know God. So the precepts that America was built on was freedom, unconditional love for each other, regardless of race, color, or religion. Everyone gets a chance to think for their own and to be able to become the best you can. And this is something very new and innovative coming to America from the rest of the world, where we're dealing with tyrants and dictators and kings, and the difficulties, how people never had a chance to really think on their own. Coming to America and introducing capitalism to the world, and introducing the idea that every person has the ability to succeed, and give the freedom of practicing religion and the freedom to be able to live a life, dress whatever clothes you want, and pray to whoever God you want, and pray in whatever language you want. Just the whole idea of being a free people, the land of the free, that's what the United States of America is about. All that being said, we need to maintain the integrity of the United States of America. The soul of America needs to be maintained, and we cannot allow it to deteriorate and to disappear. God is a fundamental part, the bedrock of America, United States of America. And God we trust is on our currency for a reason, to remind us that our lives cannot be void of God. The same thing when it comes to speech. There's a difference between freedom of speech and hate speech. So here, our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was being called on because of a visa that was revoked of someone who wrote an op-ed. One needs to understand and appreciate that in America, there's no place for hate. Hate is not freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is when you are able to talk freely to help and better the world and better society. But if you're going to spout hatred and be the one that's going to incite hate and violence, that's not freedom of speech, and that cannot be allowed. And it's a fine line, but one needs to be able to understand that if you are a guest in our country, you need to be grateful to its host. You need to come to this country with the mindset that I'm here to become part of you, I'm here to become you, and I'm here to support you and to respect you. If you're coming to this country with the mindset that you want to change our country, that you want to take your values and make it our values, otherwise you're going to create havoc and hate and disunity, then you don't belong in our country. It's just like an analogy. Someone comes knocking on your door and they say, "Can I stay with you?" You want to make sure that the guest is upstanding and the guest has integrity, that the guest is not going to harm you, but is going to be an ally to you. Otherwise, why would you let him to the house? And that is what America has dealt with immigration. Immigration has been incredible over all the years, over centuries. Countries have always exchanged its citizens for one reason or another. I remember in the 1940s when the Jews who fled the Holocaust, the dark days of the Holocaust, came to America. They kissed the ground of America. They were so happy to be here, to become American. They rolled up their sleeves. They worked diligently to get back on their feet. They didn't come here as a victim. They came here as a pioneer, that we found a land of the free, and we're going to do whatever we can to preserve this land of the free. And the Jewish contribution to the United States of America is indisputable, because that is our commitment. Our commitment is that when we are welcomed by a host to be a guest in their country, we are there for them. We want to be able to do whatever we can to be grateful to our host for allowing us to come and get ourselves rebuilt. And this is why the Jewish people continuously pray for the government, and we continuously are grateful to be in the United States of America. In contrast to others who are continuously demeaning, destroying. Just go through the streets of Dearborn, Michigan, and hearing death to America. And why should we tolerate that? Why should that even be allowed? So I certainly hope that our wonderful Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, continues on his right path and be strong and be bold and not to let anyone get to you, because there's so much out there that's trying to break the fiber of the land of the free that we cannot let that happen. God bless you. God loves you.